Well, it's another very warm welcome back, all my YouTube subscribers, and thanks once more for giving up your valuable time to tune in to Classic Dirt Bike TV. Now, I hope you're continuing to enjoy at least some of the vintage dirt bike content that I'm serving up here on my channel, and that you find something that interests you with regards to these old motocrossers. Now, in this next video clip, we're going to take a look at another of those long lost classics that are seldom seen in this modern day, so I hope you'll stay with me as we check out Gary Britton's 1973 Yamaha MX360. Now, this featured bike was actually not a bike at all at one time, and Gary initially purchased this machine as a collection of spare parts that were in various boxes, and over the course of time Gary has put it all back together into what is quite a decent example of a 1973 MX360 Yamaha. Now, at first glance we can tell that the bike isn't exactly a fully original 1973 machine, as it has had one or two non-original cosmetic changes made, including fitting different race bars, a different rear exhaust tailpipe, and of course those non-standard black wheels. These 1973 360 Yamaha engines were excellent little power plants, and they were a single cylinder two-stroke with reed valve induction, and they had a bore of 80mm and a stroke of 70mm. Now, the motors also had a 5-speed gearbox, electronic ignition, and was fed its fuel by a Mikuni carburetor. Now, they also had Yamaha's Auto Lube oil system, which was basically a separate oil tank and pump for the two-stroke oil, and you just put regular fuel into the fuel tank, and the Auto Lube system took care of the rest. Although here on Gary's bike it looks like he's done away with the Auto Lube system and now just fills the tank with pre-mixed fuel, which basically does the same task, and this steel tank would have held about 2 gallons of fuel, which was more than enough for a full day's racing. These handlebars and grips are not as you'd expect the original items, although then again, how many old motocrossers from 1973 do you know that still have their factory fitted bits and pieces? Now, from what I can remember from back in 1973, the front forks on these 360s weren't the best handling of their time, but they were okay as long as you never got too adventurous when it came to high speeds or trying some fancy tabletop jumps. The back end of these Yamaha bikes weren't much better, although things did improve slightly if you removed the factory fitted rear shocks and replaced them with something a bit more substantial. Now, this is not the correct tailpipe on Gary's bike, but still looks the part, as the original of course would have been much smaller, made of steel and matte black in colour. But for me personally, I still can't grasp this culture of painting good quality steel wheels black on an old classic bike. You just can't beat a pair of polished alloy wheels or a pair of shiny chrome rims, which are much more in keeping with the classic dirt bike era. Now, my eagle-eyed YouTubers may have already noticed that Gary has added a set of 250 badges on his bike's side panels, which is not right, naturally, as this machine is without doubt a 360 model, though Gary mentioned that prior to this race meeting he couldn't source a set of 360 graphics for his bike, but had a pair of 250 badges in his workshop, so he just stuck them on until such times as a new set of 360s could be found. Now, these Yamaha drum brakes had decent stopping power for an older drum system, and they were only adequate at best, trying to slow down what was essentially quite a heavy bike for a 360. Now, in that little orange box on the fork stanchions is Gary's transponder to record his lap times. Although essentially this 360 Yamaha motor was a very good power plant for its time, although some riders did comment that it could be a bit too fiery. But if it was jetted right and everything set up correctly, then this was a very powerful and reliable motocross engine. And if you wanted power and speed, then this would certainly deliver. But there was no mistaking the credentials of the reed valve Yamaha motor on these 1973 360s. It was really the chassis that was the big letdown, as the forks were just far too soft and the back end had a tendency to hop all over the place if it wasn't set up correctly. But despite my criticisms about Gary's colour choice of wheels on his bike, he still made a very good job of putting together what really was essentially not a bike at all, but a pile of parts in boxes. And when I actually grabbed these video clips just before the bike's inaugural race debut, it was still drawing a lot of attention from the passing public. But Gary's bike is another of those quite unique machines that, although the bike isn't as it looked back in 1973, this is still Gary's own interpretation of what he wanted his eventual finished bike to look like. And if Gary likes it and the bike does what it says on the tin and on the track, then that's surely good enough for him. Now, besides this particular bike, Gary has quite a few old classics in his collection, including more YZ Yamahas and a nice compilation of classic road racers as well, so he's kept very busy at weekends trying to keep them all racing and in working order. So there you have it, a very brief look at one of Gary Britton's old classic machines. That's his 1973 360 MX Yamaha. Now, I hope you continue to subscribe to my channel if you like what you see here, as we have some very nice vintage machines coming soon to Classic Dirt Bike TV. This video was brought to you in association with WealthSport, the world's #1 supplier for all your off-road, sports and leisure wear. Just visit their online website at wealthsport.com for more details.